Positive reinforcement versus aversion. In dog training, positive reinforcement methods, it's scientific, it's proven, it's moral, and it creates what we call a canine good citizen, and it creates a dog, when they learn something, they learn it well and they learn it for life. It doesn't destroy the relationship. Communication is open. They listen. It's not different with babies, toddlers, children. Aversion that we might talk about in dog training is yelling, yanking, smacking, grabbing, scowling, hitting, kicking. And 41% of dogs treated that way, I won't say trained that way, I'll say treated that way, they exhibit anxiety, aggression, fear. In human beings, people treated with corporal punishment, and people that have trauma in their childhood or adolescence, we do know that their outcomes often involve, their anxiety, depression, substance abuse, neurological damage, hormonal dysregulation, difficulties with relationships, so the parent-child relationship is strained or damaged, and they can go on to become victims of or perpetrators of intimate partner violence. It's just what we know. Since the 80s, corporal punishment has been slowly, abolished out of schools. We know, for example, in the UK public school system, there are generations of men coming out of that system who are traumatized by the humiliation and pain of corporal punishment in school, being caned on a bare bottom, being caned on the hands, and other such methods. And I guess when we talk about corporal being physical, right? So physical punishment, corporal punishment, it includes with objects like, for example, the wooden spoon that I've had broken over me as a child, belt, a whip. It includes even scalding, burning, kicking, hitting, pinching, spanking. Now, a lot of states, let's say just in Australia, it's not illegal to punish or correct your child with some corporal punishment, but that it's stipulated as reasonable force. Is this a smack? And can parents, it's a sharp smack, okay, that's not like being hit across bare skin with a belt, or even worse, a belt buckle, or hit across the hands with a belt, or corporal punishment involves maybe having to stand in a corner and hold your arms up, and it's causing pain and exhaustion, or having to kneel down for a long period of time, or something like that, right? Are all these parents measuring out punishment like this, losing their temper, or getting frustrated, running out of patience? Are they? But they're all excellent, aren't they? They're exquisitely able to draw that line, aren't they? Oh no, it wouldn't escalate ever, right? I mean, we know that's bullshit. Aversive methods always escalate. Things can escalate to violence. The only way is up. Okay, the only way is up. There's only one way it can go. And turn into outright abuse of your puppy or of your child. Okay, maybe you're the rare one and you slapped someone once and you'd never do it again. I mean, well, what a loss of control, right? Is that a child or your wife? Why can you choose to discipline or express emotion like that to another human being, to your spouse? And if you can't, why are you allowed to do it to a child? And can you use it and not escalate it? It might be a short-term fix, but it doesn't stop the behavior. It's not a teaching experience. It doesn't open communication and allow the child or the dog to express. It breaks trust. It shuts down communication, and it means the behavior happens over and over again. Imagine a parent holding a child, so a toddler or a baby even. The baby hits the mum in the face. Because babies do that, and toddlers too. They can really hit hard. Now, the parent who thinks, just doesn't have control of their emotions, they're not calm, they're not neutral, and they think, before they can think, or they think they should just either pretend to really cry, or, pretend to be, or they show displeasure or anger or something, or they yell, no, or exclaim something else, right? Or even just struggle with the child or something. The baby's going to hit them right in the face again. It's just like with a puppy biting. If you think, pretend to squeal like it hurts, or I'll just push them down, or I'm looking at them and saying, ow, ow, no, stop. You're reinforcing the behavior. Be neutral. Neutral face to the baby. No, we don't hit. No, we don't do that. Would you like to learn how to do a high five? Teach another behavior, and teach another behavior to your puppy. Not comparing human babies to young dogs. However, they are equal beings on this planet, Earth, right? And the methods work for both. And certain methods used create the same negative outcomes in both. Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers was hit with a belt by his stepfather before he went missing. Over a year ago. It's stated that there are 5 CPS cases open against him in the 17 months prior to Sebastian's disappearance. He told people at his school, he told teachers, mandated reporters that he was being hit with a belt. Christopher Proudfoot talks about doing that. Who knows? Did something escalate? Did it just end in someone running away? Christopher Byers, so one witness account from the time, Christopher Byers had a beating that night and that day, and he was running away. He wanted to run away. And Stevie Branch had been hit by Terry Hobbs, his stepfather, in his little 8-year-old life too. Did he want to run away? Was Michael Moore just there to, oh gosh, I better try and keep my friends safe. I'm the scout. I might have to use my wildlife skills, my survival skills. These poor little kids. Who knows if that's the truth, right? I don't know. It's a report. It's an eyewitness account. It's a telling. I don't know if it's truth. I guess it's hearsay. I don't know how it would be counted. But that's how the story goes. Running away from corporal punishment. from someone who did not have a lot of self-control. We know the story of John Mark Byers. Now, yeah, a lot of people say, well, I was hit with the belt. Did you decide to grow up and hit your children with the belt? Hey, maybe you did. Maybe you decided it was all right. Or maybe you grew up and you thought, wow, I'm not going to be like that with my children. And then maybe, you realised how difficult parenting was. Who knows? And you lost your cool too. It's not okay. It's my opinion, but it's just not okay. But it is rampant and it's epidemic. And gee, look how society's improving, right? Wow. Yeah, it really works. It really works. We don't have people with mental health difficulties. No. Everything's fine, isn't it? Everything's fine. Yeah. So it's just my opinion on corporal punishment. I know that it escalates. It escalates to, and when people, humans, dogs, under threat, the way the brain operates, those neural pathways when we think about danger and being in danger and that hormonal reactivity, that fight, flight, fawn, fidget, we call them the dog training sphere. It's documented. We know it happens. And those things, that's brain damage. And the behavior that people are trying to correct, the behavior itself gets worse or can get worse, or the outcomes from it just get worse over time. And I don't think a lot of people have the self-control. They need to try other methods. Maybe because it's not intuitive for them, maybe they need education on it. There's so many watershed moments people have when they are learning about how to understand their dog, their puppy, and they realize how complicated they've been making things, or how difficult for themselves and for their dog they've been making things, because they're just not getting the basics. They don't understand how logical and practical dogs are. And younger children, babies, everything, they're like that as well. We become neurotic as we get older. And being very careful about how you react, because a negative reaction is a reaction. If you're looking for social interaction, it doesn't matter. To a puppy, there's other things that speak more loud and clear, teaching them how they can actually get what they want. Hitting a child with a strap or a belt might, in that moment, might draw them into line, make them respect you or fear you. And what are they now really thinking? And are they likely to come to you for guidance? It just can only lead to worse and worse things. And it's not something to be diminished, because it's damaging society. And generation after generation, just because it happens all the time and it's just part of culture, and it doesn't make it right, doesn't make it a good part of culture. And sure, human history is very interesting with how human beings over our history have thought of as, babyhood, childhood, adolescence, etc. Adolescence as a concept at all, for example, didn't exist. But we know so much now, and we know things that work. Don't we want to teach people to respect other people's bodies and boundaries? How is the threat of violence, even if it's just the threat of, how is that okay? How is that healthy for developing into the world? It's not. I think I would have been more scared though of mum actually beating me than maybe the wooden spoon. My family actually laugh about the wooden spoon now, but I don't know. I think we were pretty frightened of it. But my mother was she was at the end of her tether. Yeah. I would have appreciated more though, actually, a mother who wanted to talk with me and communicate, teach me how to communicate and how to think more healthily about myself. And it's interesting, when you think about, your life, various people's lives, your own life, whatever, and combinations of things. So, for me with, Catholic indoctrination, the Catholic Church is something, it is holy, I mean with a W, the supernatural aspect and everything. If you're an anxious child, if you are struggling with identity and understanding the world and how things work, and you just need a little bit more help because you might be a little bit different, things like that, adding into relationships that aren't strong, so you feel like you've got nowhere to go, it adds up to major problems as you go through life, especially when adolescence hit with hormones, rebellious stages and things, all which happen with everybody, but it's deeper and more difficult to navigate. And it has really poor outcomes, just like a puppy who has not been raised mindfully. You can teach bite inhibition very, very quickly, or you can struggle with it until now you've got a teenage dog, a dog that's getting its adult teeth, it's 6 months old, it wants to bite hard on things, it's getting hormone bursts. Too late. Good luck with that one, right? And same maybe with a teenager that you haven't helped in the past to regulate. There's no open communication because your way of discipline was to hit or to whatever. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, being the mother of toddlers and things, it's entirely, young kids, it's got to be so frustrating at times, and they throw tantrum. I mean, look, oh my gosh. I mean, my parents have been kicked out of enough campgrounds, thank you very much, because I'm crying, screaming. My dad used to threaten to leave me in the garage as a young child. He'd carry me out to the garage and threaten to leave me out there in the dark in the garage because I'm just screaming, crying. I could not communicate, right? As a little child, a baby, and then a toddler, and I couldn't communicate what I needed. I didn't know how I was feeling, and I couldn't regulate. It's very uncomfortable for a being to not be able to communicate and being shut down. So, certain behaviors, yes, you want to teach, right? You want to teach lessons to children to behave properly, to protect them, protect their future, protect society. But, there's a time and a place maybe for a smack, right? And if your modus operandi is corporal punishment, which includes, whacking a child with a belt, those communication lines aren't open. It's that trust is gone. And I don't care if you grow up and you say, well, it didn't do me any harm, look at me. Really? I bet you could actually reflect and name a few things in your life that it has affected. Yeah, and especially adults, that they don't have control. They lose control, they lose their tempers, they lose the ability to regulate how they're acting to that child. It's very scary for the child, even if most of the time that child is safe, is cared for, they've got a roof over their head, a mother who cooks them meals, and for the all intents and purposes, maybe it's just a pretty regular life. Those moments are affecting their future. Why be the perpetrator of that? Especially when it escalates, and it has led in our society, it leads to a lot of these cases of the murder of biological step, foster children. It's violence, and it's the idea that at first that it is your right to be able to put your hands, or your force, through a belt or an object, verbally even, toward a child. Can you tell me there's not an epidemic of children being murdered, going missing? And it has its root in that little seed that that lack of patience, that lack of compassion. You need patience for positive reinforcement training, but I say go slow to learn fast, because it might seem tedious, and it takes discipline, your own, at first, but then you just have this huge growth. The learning is sudden, it's certain, it's sure, it's long lasting. You're not struggling on, and your behavior getting worse and the other entity's behavior getting worse. It's just that's just my opinion, that's my experience, what I see. And heaven forbid I wouldn't want to be around children, but in helping people with their dogs, I see what works, I see what doesn't. It's as clear, it's black and white. Anyway, ramble. I don't know what I'm trying to say. But was Christopher Byers, the witness, saying he was running away from a beating he'd received that afternoon at the hands of John Mark Byers, Stevie Branch? We know he had some whoopings, right? Were they running away with little Michael Moore, trying to just keep them safe with his survival skills? I mean, I just, and if they could have just been found, if they could have just been found by 6 o'clock, Pam Hobbs just went to work at the Catfish Island restaurant with the understanding that her husband was parenting, and his role for his task for parenting that night was Looking for Stevie Branch, Michael Moore and Christopher Byers by proxy, right? Looking for his stepson Stevie that he'd raised since Stevie was 1.5 years old, but still, you know. And yeah, imagine if they'd been found. The Byers were looking as well, and they'd actually been looking consistently. They'd gone to the police. They'd called the police around to their home at 7 o'clock. And you know, it possibly was even too late by then. I think the coroner said from maybe between, was it 6 and 8:20, or 6:30 and 8:20, somewhere around then is when he thought death occurred. Two of the boys drowning, but would have died from their injuries. You know, yeah. You know, coulda, woulda, shoulda, and, you know, the what ifs, yeah. They aren't useful. Let's learn from them. You know, let's learn that we need to take 8-year-old boys being out on their own seriously. Not saying that, hey, maybe it wasn't, but maybe, you know, it sort of seems like, hey, maybe was someone not as concerned as they should have been? We don't know. Does someone just like keeping this bit of this myth and mystery surrounding them, right? 'Cause it keeps people coming back to talk and to read the books. But yeah, you know, I don't think there's a place for violence. I don't think there's a place for fear. You know, I didn't experience that sort of abuse as a child. I can't imagine, you know. Neglect is abusive. Neglect is often the cause. You know, this could very well be what's happening to these poor little children in Canada. The 6 and 4-year-old who are missing now, it's just, you know, they're just products of neglect. Yeah, it's just... Anyway, I'm rambling now, aren't I? I'm just a bit distracted. Gotta feed buggerlugs here, eh? No. Yeah, I'll pass off. See you later.